Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Flux with fluxwithit.com, and today I'm here with the Arturia V Collection 3. This is a collection of 8 different analog modeled synthesizers, and also the Spark vintage drum machines instrument, which also houses about 30 different drum machines in it, and you also get Analog Laboratory, which has about 5,000 presets in that. So what I've done is I've just loaded each instrument from the V collection onto a separate pad in Maschine so that I can show you how it loads up inside of Maschine and exactly how it maps out across your 8 knobs on Maschine. And just going to run through some of these sounds and just show you what this thing is all about. So first up, we have the Wurlitzer. And what's great about these plugins here is the GUI to them looks just like, you know, an actual hardware unit, and you can do some interesting things with it. So if you want to take a look at the FX and add effects to this unit, you click the FX box, and then an effects board rolls out underneath, and here we go. And of course, you can just click on your wah here. Click on the vocal filter. And you can add more effects right inside of here. So let's say we wanted to add a compressor. You can also add in some overdrive. So you can get these really funky sounds out of it. And of course, there's lots of different banks here. The way that they organize all the different plugins is, you know, uniform across it. So you can go in and you can go by, you know, sound designer names, and there's also some really fantastic sound designers in here, and just some really high quality presets to go off of. And of course, you can have everything MIDI'd up. The pages you can just scroll right through, and it will list what everything is. So there's really no guessing when you're using this. Everything is very straightforward inside of Maschine. So all these plugins, you know, I know sometimes we get plugins that don't always map out so nicely in Maschine. These map out and give you the name of every single piece in a very easy to read manner. So that's really nice. Let's move on. Now, the Spark LE, or excuse me, the Spark vintage drum machines in here are awesome. When I go into pad mode here, I can play it just like the Maschine pads, and it maps out very similarly. Kick here, snare here, hi-hat, open hi-hat. You also have controls over things like your filter. If I turn the bypass off here, I can get right in there and start tweaking away right away. So you can tweak the sounds very easily, and again, everything is mapped out. You also have the sequencer inside of here as well, so if you want to do step programming, and we can run through and just grab different drum machines. You can run through and select different patterns. You can make full songs in this. Now, of course, also on top of that, you can mix and match different drums from different machines. So say you like this kick, which is quite nice. But let's say you want a different snare. You know, all you'd have to do is just go into here and click here. We're going to go to Instrument, Snare Drum. You can change whatever slot you're on and just pick different sounds. So now, look, I've changed this kick drum into a snare here. You can select through and just decide whatever you want to work on. So if you wanted to reverse a kick and snare, you can do that easily. If you want to maybe have nothing but just different kicks on there. Let's say you're working on a project in Maschine and you want to have lots of different variations in the kick drums. You could have all those pads be different kick drums and just run through them. Very easy, just select your number and change whatever you want to change inside of here. So let's go into here and do something like this. Now we have a totally different snare. And of course, you can both tweak these from the controller, or you can just grab them right up on here. So there's also, along with analog style drums, you also have like PCM style drums in here, the sample based. You've got physical modeling. Let's go into here, and then you can go and basically you can get into just lots of different great drum sounds. And it's just a really easy to use drum synth that works inside a Maschine really well. So you can go inside of here and you can scroll through. You can see that you can even control the sequencer right from the knobs inside of Maschine, which is nice. So you can mute steps, or you can, like if you see here, it'll have the numbers and it'll mute. If I turn step 3 to mute, I turn this up and it's going to mute that step when it plays it. So very easy to use. So let's move on from there. Here's the Prophet V2. Now, the Prophet V is really nice because not only do you get this beautiful layout of a Prophet 5 looking synth, and it sounds really nice. And again, everything is mapped right out on here so you can get right into it. You can also get different models of the Prophet. So if you want the VS version of the Prophet, you just click this button here and it transforms like a transformer, and now you have a Prophet VS. And of course, it's still mapped out right on here. So if you want to get in there and tweak your cutoff or whatever, you can get right into it. And also you have the option to do a hybrid between them. So you have both a Prophet 5 and a Prophet VS stacked together. And you have just every control right here at your fingertips on Maschine without any guesswork, which is awesome. Moving on. You have the new Arturia Env, which is one of my personal favorites. With these, you can also switch between a mono mode and a poly mode. And you have full control over your tunings of your oscillators. You know, you can just really dive into it. You can do your fine tuning. So very easy to use this as well. Another great thing about these is when you're loading through your sounds, I mean, you just have a ton of presets inside of here. Look at all these presets. It's ridiculous, right? And again, with these, you can scroll through by the type, which will give you, you know, everything from strings to sequences and percussion and everything else. And you can also go through and check out the banks of what sound designer had worked on it. Very nice. Let's move on. Now this is the Modular V, which is essentially a large modular synth, and you're free to change the modules around. So, for instance, up top here we have a sequencer, then we've got fixed filter bank, you've got some effects. You can go through here and check out the different filters and envelopes. Down here we've got oscillators and drivers. You can change out what you have here, and it sounds just really ballsy. And again, everything maps out right on the controller. And I was able to find the filter and resonance, you know, in what, a second and a half, if that, just by pressing over twice, and I got right to the cutoff and the resonance. It's easily labeled. So very easy. Now, if you want to change what you're working with, let's say you want to change this filter here, you can go right inside of here and select what style filter you want to use. Say you want to form it. You could go ahead and just change that. You want a bode shifter, you can go inside of here, and then you just handle your patch cables and you're good to go. So it's really really nice, and you can change the size of the GUI here, and you can scroll up and down on it as well. So if you want to scroll all the way down to the keyboard here, you have that. You've got your mixer section. If you want to just be in a performance mode, you can press the keyboard button up here, and you just have your performance controls right here. Very easy to get to. If you want just the top section, you can select that and jump right to it. It's very easy to jump around on the GUI, even though, you know, it's very large and there's just a lot going on here. If you break it down into sections, which, you know, these knobs allow you to do, it's really easy to use. The plus or minus over here on the side will let you kind of change the size of the actual window itself. So if you only want a little bit, like let's say you want to work with just a sequencer, you can do that, you know, or if you want just the middle section or, you know, just a keyboard, you can of course do that. And if you want the whole thing, you can just pop it on out there. You've got the whole thing, which is nice. And let's go ahead and make that a little bit smaller here. So, and of course, again, we can go right into the presets here. And you've got a ton of presets on this one as well, which is really, really nice. So if we wanted to just take a look at all these different basses inside of here. We've got leads. And it just sounds really, really nice. I like this one a lot as well. This is one of my favorites. Now we got to hop into the Mini V, which is a Mini Moog clone, basically. And you can do some interesting things with this as well, because you're not limited to just mono. But you can also do poly versions of it as well. And again, it gets right into here with easy mapping. So and it does sound very good. This is, you know, this has been one of the main staples for Arturia for a while, as far as one of their main synths. So, again, just an absolute ton of presets in here from some of the top names in the industry. You really just can't go wrong with a Mini Moog. Flip this up inside of here, we can get to your modulation matrix, which is really nice, and you can get to your effects. So if you want to play around and maybe do some things that a regular Moog would not do, this just gives you access to a lot of extra features and an extra LFO inside of here. You can sync it up. You can send things all over the place. You got a vocal filter inside of here as well. So lots of different features that really expand on the traditional usage of it. Let's go in here. Just a very nice synthesizer as well. And of course you have instant access to the matrix up here. You've got your different effects, your delay and your chorus right up here. You can do quick MIDI learning, formant filter. Very easy to just jump right in. You can decide how many voices you want to use, You can decide which note priority you're using. I prefer last, personally. The sound map is another really interesting feature of these synths. When you go into here, you can see what sounds are kind of similar to each other and what kind of sounds you have all working together. So if we go into here, you can see these are pad sounds and they're kind of similar. Very nice. Moving on, we have a Jupiter. Now the Jupiter 8V, this is a pretty classic synth here. I'm sure everybody's well aware of it. And again, you have your poly mode here. You can decide what note gets priority. You can do your unison. You got the sound map again. And just a ton of presets. Look at all of these. If you're somebody who just wants to be able to get to sounds quickly, the V collection is excellent for that. And it just sounds great. Now, along with this, you can manipulate every feature, just as if it was hardware, just by grabbing it here. And again, it's also on the Maschine controller here. You can play it from your mouse. So if you're on the go and you want to, you don't have a controller with you, or you just have a small, like let's say you have an Akai LPK or something, you could use that. Or you could get the, Arturia has the Mini Lab series, which is really nice. And you could plug that in and control everything right from there. These can all be auto-mapped right to your Mini Lab. So that's very nice as well. Let's run through just a couple more sounds on this one as well. We'll go by ambient, all. Moving on, we have the CS80V. The CS80V is another brilliant synth, just absolutely fantastic, and it has all these nice hidden features inside of here. You can just get to every little thing you would possibly want to. And again, you still have your chorus, your delay up top. You've got your sound map, your MIDI learn functions. It's like instant Vangelis here. Just a beautiful sounding synth with a ton of excellent sounds in it. And again, the GUI will change depending on what you're using, and you can open it up and get to deeper features like your modulation. Open up inside of here, and you can really just get really into like the kind of behind the scenes stuff on these synthesizers just by digging in there. Let's get into some interesting sounds here. We'll do some percussive stuff. And by having a sequencer built in, you know, you can get some really cool modulations, or you can get some really cool sequences out of it. It's just nice. Moving on, we have the ARP 2600. This is another one where you can select areas of the synth to look at. Most of the time you're probably going to be spending in the upper half of this, and you can also make the windows smaller and larger, just like on the Modular V. And of course you have all your patch points, and you can, you know, move things around and get really interesting different textures out of this by patching up different chords. course, everything is mapped out right on here. So you can, you know, if you want to play with it. So basically, the standalone synths inside of the V collection are just really a great match for using with Maschine. On top of that, you get the Analog Lab, which is going to give you access to 5,000 presets right inside of here. You can do your splits. Everything's going to be mapped out right onto your controller, and it's just a beautiful interface so that you can see exactly what you have selected. Let's say, for instance, we select the Prophet VS here. You'll see how the light changes over to it. Prophet 5. Modular. The Mini. CS80, and so on. Now, another interesting thing about this is that you can dive into a performance setting and you can decide whether or not you want to use the full versions of the plugins. You can decide how large you want the screen to be. You can decide how much RAM you want to use. You can set whether or not you want soft clipping on. You can go into a filter view here and you can select by styles or instruments or characteristics. You can also go in and decide how much polyphony you want to use, whether or not you want your LFO synced up. Another thing that you can do with this synthesizer here is get into multi-splits. And when you're doing multi-splits, it's very easy to just decide where you want your keys to cross over at. If you want to do layering, you can just drag these little markers here, and it's going to layer up your synthesizers, which is very easy and intuitive way of setting these up. You have your effects sends here, and everything is, you know, mapped out to like a Keylab 49 or whatever controller you want to use. If you want to use a standard MIDI controller, you can do that as well. You have access to your compressors and your limiters, delays, whatever features you want to use. They're right there at your fingertips. Another thing that you can do is you can go into a live performance mode, and when you go into the live performance mode, you can select using your MIDI program changes to jump between different patches. So if you were using something like a you know, a Prophet for a pad sound, and then you wanted to jump to a Moog and a different sound for a lead, you could easily do that just by sending a program change right on the controller. You also have your sound here, so we can select through and organize by ratings. You can do your own ratings. You can select by the designer, the type, the preset names even. You can go alphabetical. So just very, very easy to set up, easy to use, and it just lets you work instead of really thinking about what you have to do. So just a really great collection of sounds, great collection of instruments. So I highly recommend checking it out. And again, this is the Arturia V Collection 3. And this is Flux with fluxwithit.com. Check us out, and we'll do more videos in detail on the individual instruments inside of here later. Peace.